Hi there, Bishop Tom Dowd here with another video of Catholic teaching in 10 minutes or less. And in this video, I would like to share with you a very basic skill for those of us who want to explore the Bible a bit more. And that is the skill of how to read a Bible reference. I have here on the board a very famous reference, John 3:16. What makes this one so famous? Well, there was a fad for a time. We would often see people with this reference written on some kind of board or big sheet that they would display at events, large events, like, for example, a sporting event. Someone would hold up a sign that said John 3:16. And I guess the idea was to provoke some curiosity in people wondering, I wonder what that is. What does that sign mean? And they would ask and they would learn and they would go to the Bible and they would find that reference. Of course, nowadays it's really easy to find a passage in the Bible. If you've got the reference, all you got to do is put it into a search engine and boom, it'll pop up. The search engines are really good at being able to find Bible references like that. So we may be wondering, what's the point then of knowing how to read a Bible reference if the computer can do it for us? Well, to be honest, being able to read a Bible reference is one of those basic skills that if we want to explore faith, if we want to explore the Bible, it's good to know. It's a bit like being able to tie your shoes. Can you get through life without tying your shoes? Yeah, probably. You could wear sandals. You could wear slip-on shoes. You could wear shoes with Velcro straps instead of shoelaces. I mean, there are ways around having to tie your shoes. But isn't it true that being able to tie your shoes is one of those sort of basic skills it's good to know, even if it's not absolutely necessary? You know, someone who knows how to tie their shoes, well, it's not that big a deal. But someone who doesn't know how to tie them? So it's a basic skill for us wanting to get to know the Bible a bit better. Some of you may be saying to yourselves, well, I already know how to find a Bible passage using a Bible reference. And if that's the case, then maybe this video isn't for you. But I will tell you, there's always a few little tricky bits to anything, and that includes using Bible references. There's always a few little, twists and turns in how they work, and that's why I've divided this video into two parts. So for part one, this is the part where we're going to look at just the basics. What does this mean in its most elementary form? What is a Bible reference in its most basic form and construction? In part two, we're going to look at some of the nuances, some of the little tricky parts in how Bible references work. But for the moment, very simple, very easy to get into. When we look at a Bible reference, we can see that it's broken into three sort of conceptual parts. I've color-coded them here on this part of the line. So you can see the first concept, when you look at a Bible reference, the first part refers to the book of the Bible. The second part refers to the chapter within that book. Then the third part refers to the verse within that chapter. So it's like a funnel. You start by finding the book, then it narrows down to the chapter, and then it narrows down to the verse that you're looking for. So when we talk about the book of the Bible, what does that mean and how do we find it? A lot of people, when we look at a physical copy of the Bible, it looks like a single book. But that's actually a bit deceptive because the Bible is not really one book. It's actually a mini library. Between those two covers, there's a whole bunch of books that were written by many different authors over hundreds of years. Different phases of history have each had their own books added to the Bible. And so when we want to find a Bible passage, we got to know which of those books we're talking about. In this case, the word John refers to the Gospel of John. How do we find the Gospel of John in our Bible? Table of contents, my friends, table of contents. You just open it up, look in your table of contents, and you will find a reference to the Gospel of John. Find a page number, you flip to that, you're golden. You can get to the beginning of the Gospel of John. Then you look for in this case, chapter 3. So you flip forward a bit until you find the chapter. See, books of the Bible, most of the books of the Bible are of a length that it makes sense to break it into subdivisions we call chapters, just to make it easier for people to find things. And also it subdivides the stories of the Bible. It breaks it down into sort of conceptual chunks. And so that's what chapters are good for, and it makes it, as I say, easier to find something. So you just flip ahead till you get to chapter 3, and very often at the top of your page and that particular part of your Bible, it will show which chapter you happen to be in within that book. And then as you look at your chapters, you're going to see that the various sentences and parts of sentences sometimes within the Bible have little numbers. That indicates the actual verse that you're looking for. So it would be very easy. You go in your table of contents to find where John starts. You go into John to find where your chapter is. And then within the chapter, you look for the specific verse that you want. And voila, you followed the funnel system and you've been able to get to the actual verse you're looking for. It's that simple. Just follow the steps and you should be able to find your Bible verse. Now, people sometimes wonder, what if I don't want just one verse? What if I want a bunch of verses? Well, when you look at a Bible reference, sometimes you will see more than one verse being indicated. For example, suppose I wanted 3 verses. I'm just pulling a number out of the air, by the way, but I could put a dash and add the number 18. So suddenly, my Bible reference, it's not just one verse, it's 3, verses 16 to 18. My reference system allows me to go for more than just one verse at a time, but for a whole section of verses. What if I want a whole chapter of the Bible? Well, you could just indicate John chapter 3. You don't put the verses afterwards because this is a way of saying, I want the whole chapter. What if I want a passage that starts within one chapter but finishes in another? So for example, suppose we go back to John 3:16, but we want to go all the way through to, I don't know, chapter 5, verse 5. Like I said, I'm just pulling a number out of the air, but just to show how it works. So I'd put a dash. I would put the chapter 5. I'd add another colon, verse 5. So the system is really flexible for being able to find verses. You're able to not just look for one line, but look for a whole section. And that's a way to describe for someone else the part of the Bible that you're referring to, or for someone else to tell you what part of the Bible to read. Suppose you're doing a Bible study and you're being encouraged to read a passage in advance. They just give you one line, this Bible verse, boom. Easy to find, easy to follow, easy to use for your personal study. So this is part 1 of our video, the basics of how to find a Bible verse. In part 2, we're going to explore some of the tricky parts, because as easy as I made it sound, let's face it, there's always a little exception here, a little tricky part there, and it's good for all of us to know what those are. I want you to feel smart as you're looking through your Bible trying to find passages. I don't want you to feel lost, and so part 2 will be to help us explore that even more. But in the meantime, happy Bible study, and God bless you.